And with that, I'll introduce Tom Troy, Flexpod Business Manager at NetApp. Tom?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, perfect. My name is Tom Troy. I'm the Flexpod Business Manager here at NetApp. And what I wanted to talk about today was Flexpod, and more importantly, how Flexpod can help out with VDI issues. So a little history on me. I came over to NetApp from SolidFire. Some of you may or may not know SolidFire, but we were a company based out of Colorado who recently got acquired by NetApp. And I think the interesting thing with SolidFire was the ability to control performance on a per volume basis. And that ties very nicely into VDI. So a lot of people will run VDI on a standalone system and with no contention for performance. So we can't have the VDI conflicting with a database and so on and so forth. And so, my history with SolidFire played very nicely into the Flexpod story, and I'll go into more detail here on how SolidFire and Flexpod play together. But at SolidFire, VDI was a big use case that a lot of our customers were looking at. And VDI has had trouble in the past. People could go from a pilot and have a really great experience, and then they would go to production and things would change dramatically. And a lot of people abandoned VDI because of that. And I think what you'll learn here today is a very nice way to tackle that pilot to production and then potentially add other apps to the pod, like databases and Openstack and things like that. So I'll jump into it here. Let me see if I can do the slides. Moving kind of slow. We've got a pretty wave there. So pilot to production. As I mentioned, a lot of people have started a pilot with maybe 50 instances or 100 instances and had a great experience and decided to go into production with 500, 800, 1,000, maybe thousands of VDI instances. And what I've seen historically is that, teams will take what they have and do the math, get the Excel spreadsheet out and figure out, hey, if I just double the amount of gear that I have, I should get double the performance and have the same experience that I had on my pilot. And, a lot of you on the call here know that's not the case. We've got to determine which storage is going to deliver the right experience to the customer. If I add that existing infrastructure to the pilot to go to production, am I going to get that same experience? And in most cases, you don't. So what we're going to talk about here is really future-proofing your investment in your VDI pilot and taking that to production and having the same experience that you had in the pilot. So what I want to talk about is Flexpod, and some of you on the call may know what that is and some don't. So Flexpod is a combined effort between NetApp and Cisco. So essentially what it is UCS from Cisco, Cisco networking with Nexus switches, and NetApp storage. So the big push now, in the different environments that we see out there is adding flash to the environment. Flash has a lot of good things, whether it be OpEx from power and cooling, can help a lot in floor tiles and space in the data center, and then you also have performance associated with flash. So what Flexpod is really taking the risk off of you, the customer, and transferring that over to NetApp and Cisco. So instead of trying to figure out, hey, what switch is going to work best with my storage, what's going to work best from a UCS perspective and trying to manage all of that yourself, Flexpod is a combination of Cisco and NetApp, and all of that risk is taken off of you and brought over to both Cisco and NetApp. So the benefit here is, going forward, you have a single 1-800 number that you can call for support. You've got a validated system today and looking forward into the future. So again, that future-proofing the investment. So, you don't have to do all the legwork. It's all done by Cisco and NetApp and our ecosystem partners, whether it be Citrix, VMware, and so on. and you've got a validated design that can really help out with your VDI effort. So if you look at the different systems that we have to offer, we can start with Flexpod Express. That could be a great starter package for your initial VDI, maybe a remote office or so on. But we also have what's called Flexpod Data Center and Flexpod Select. And I'll go into more detail on where these different pieces fit into the pie. But the point here is you can start small, or you can go all the way up to the biggest systems that we have for big analytics, things like Hadoop and Splunk and so on and so forth. So again, where I see the issues and where a lot of you have probably faced issues with your VDI pilot to production is that pilot works great. There's really no contention for performance out there. But when we add more systems or more applications to the environment, that's where things start to go downhill. So everyone comes into work, boots up their machines, performance goes down and degrades, people have a bad experience. So where I think this plays very nicely into VDI is the ability to adjust the compute and the storage. So you can see here on the screen, I can have a system for, Hadoop, SAP, Oracle that needs more compute and less storage. Or on the left, we've got more of a high performance system for things like VDI, databases, Openstack. Or if we just want a standalone VDI-ish system, we could use our smaller system to adjust the performance accordingly for just that VDI instance. So it's in the name, it's flexible, right? So I can do my pilot, I can see exactly what I'm going to have from a VDI pilot situation, and then as I go forward, down the road and want to bring other applications onto the system or grow that pilot out and go into full-scale production, with a system like this, you have the ability to control the compute, control the storage, and adjust it as your business needs change. So this is really the way that you can go from pilot to production and, in the name of the WebEx here, avoid that shock, right? And you have the support from both Cisco and NetApp to help you along the way. So I think where, a lot of people are excited about Flexpod right now is the introduction of SolidFire into the system, and this is something you can talk with your cStor reps about, and this is why I came over to NetApp to take on this job. What's really cool here is that ability with SolidFire to control performance on a per run basis or a per volume basis. So, instead of having a total dedicated system for a VDI instance, with SolidFire within Flexpod, I now have essentially a dedicated virtualized storage array. So a single volume could have, 500 or 1,000 VDI instances in it, and I have the ability to adjust the IOPS up or down, or even automate that process to turn the IOPS up when a particular group needs more performance. So again, it's taking that flexibility to a whole nother level. So now I can control the compute, now I can control the storage as needed, and more importantly, with SolidFire, I can now go in and adjust the IOPS as the VDI instance requires it. Or I can put a SQL database on that same system and have the two totally segregated as if they were dedicated storage arrays. So again, it's that pilot to production. Once I'm in production, I add more to it, I acquire another company, and we want to do VDI with that group. Very easy to do with this system because I can control every function and piece of this system from a compute, performance, storage, scale the thing out to petabytes of storage if I want to. So again, a very flexible system, and should play very nicely into what a lot of people are trying to do from a VDI, database, enterprise apps type perspective. So I kind of broke it down here on this slide. So the Flexpod Express is our more cost-effective converged infrastructure, which could be just a standalone Citrix, Zen desktop VDI type scenario. But I think where we see a lot of penetration with Flexpod in the different environments that we work with around the world is the Flexpod data center. That's where I could have all of my enterprise apps, whether it be VDI, MongoDB, which normally you couldn't run on a system with multiple apps on it. With SolidFire, you now can. SQL Server, SharePoint, you name it. So point again here is let's start small with what we need, and then as those business needs change and those apps come across your desk that require more performance, more storage, more compute, you have that ability to grow the system out as time goes on. And then the last one we have is Flexpod Select. So that's really focused on more of our big data and analytics. So that's your Hadoop and Splunk and Oracle and so on and so forth. So the point here is we can start small, we can go all the way up to the largest, or anything in between, and all of the systems will talk to each other. Another thing that's really interesting here at NetApp is we have the idea of the data fabric, and we'd love to talk with the different interested customers or prospects out there, along with your cStor reps, to talk about how these systems can tie into your cloud efforts. So if you guys are looking at Azure or Amazon, these systems have a way to take that data out and help you leverage those different cloud offerings out there. So it's really an all-encompassing system from VDI, your databases, your cloud efforts, everything all combined into one. So if there's anyone interested in that, please reach out to your cStor reps. We'd love to talk more about it. And within the data center piece here, that's really where SolidFire would play a play. Said that twice. So looking at the different enterprise apps that you can run on Flexpod, you can see it's not only VDI, but I know that's the focus of this webinar here today. But looking from the validated workloads, it is VDI, it's SharePoint, it's your databases, it's your big analytics, VMware Farm, whatever you have. You can see the different pieces here from business continuity, orchestration, your different security options. We've got secure multi-tenancy, secure separation, and the different OSs that we work on here. So, in most cases, everything people are trying to do can run on a system like this and can be scaled out and grown, again, as the business needs change. And I think that's different from a lot of other systems out there. What you're used to from other vendors is, well, this is what I sell, this is what you need to buy, just tell me what the capacity is. This is a little different in that you can tailor this and fine-tune it to your needs. This is what the storage vendor is dictating to you, and I think that's really refreshing. Going on to the next slide here, Flash, right? We know Flash is awesome for virtualized workloads. It's great for VDI, right? You can get a much smaller footprint in the data center, take advantage of the OpEx from a power and cooling perspective, but more importantly, your customers within your companies get the experience that they expect, right? The thing boots up when it's supposed to. There's no wait time. It's all about having that experience so that those customers get what they need and are happy with the efforts that you've put into your VDI deployment. And then looking at the payback on Flash. Flash is cheaper now than spinning disk. You've got the power savings, you've got the rack savings. Another one that people really don't think about is the cable savings too, right? I can reduce the amount of cables out there and pay the system off from a investment perspective very quickly, or show that payback very quickly to upper management if needed. So moving on, we have a thing called lifecycle management here at NetApp with Flexpod, and I think this is a key feature with the system. So, for people out there now who have their own networking, who have their own maybe UCS in place with Cisco, have their own storage, I think what's important here is that you get prescriptive upgrade paths when you have a Flexpod. So if you've done it yourself, you need to figure out, is this switch going to work with my UCS piece? Is the storage going to work with the switches, and so on and so forth? So what's interesting here with Flexpod is when you're under our support program, we will validate whatever the new stuff is that we want to bring in. So for instance, SolidFire, which is coming here toward the end of the year into the Flexpod, we will validate that new piece is going to work just fine with what you guys already have, or with the system you bought today or bought 5 years down the road. So again, taking that risk off of you and bringing it over to us, you're going to have that validation going forward to make sure that all your compute, your storage, your hypervisors, everything works non-disruptively as we move from the old to the new and slowly upgrade those systems. So that's a huge benefit, and I think that ties into VDI going forward, right? So if I do my pilot now, I go to production, what's going to happen down the road when, this pilot's grown to, 50,000 VDI instances in some cases? How do I know that as I add to this system, again, my investment is protected and this stuff is going to work going forward? So just looking again, kind of a wrap-up couple slides here. Flexpod is flexible, it's fast, with all flash, and it's very functional, right? So we've got automation. We can, automate the system to make it very easy for you to, add to the system. And, along with automation, we've got Openstack. So I don't know if anyone out there is doing Openstack. I put it on the deck here because a lot of groups that are doing VDI are investigating Openstack. If that's the case, we've got you covered here with Flexpod. So again, it's more about a consolidation of applications and getting rid of those islands of storage and compute out there that are doing individual tasks. There's really no need for that anymore with something like this, because we could start with a small VDI implementation on a Flexpod, and as we grow that system out, we can begin to add other applications that make sense for the enterprise and bring those on to a single system. And then lastly is lifecycle management and flash, right? Everybody's looking at flash. We know it's fast, we know it's great, but again, with this system, how does that tie into the system today and go forward? And that's where that validation and that lifecycle management really makes a big difference. So looking at how you order the different Flexpod systems, we've simplified everything, and you can work with your cStor reps again on this. But everything can be ordered very simply. So we can help with infrastructure automation, help with a very simple delivery through our different ecosystem partners out there to take all of the pieces, put it together for you, and help you with that deployment. And very simple, sizing and quoting. And again, we can work with the cStor reps on, finding the system that makes sense for you today and going forward in the future. So Flexpod in summary, really I think where this ties into what we're talking about today is, what if I want to start small? What if I want to do a small pilot of VDI? But what if this thing is very successful and management says, hey, I want to take this to the next level and go into full-scale production? That's exactly what this system can do for you. We can help you with all of your switching, all of your UCS, all of your storage, whether it's NetApp FAS or AFF from a flash perspective, or looking forward into the future, bringing in the new SolidFire into the pod. The other thing that I think is really interesting is the support. So if you think about, well, now I've got NetApp, I've got Cisco involved in my environment, who do I call for support? How do I know if it's a NetApp issue or a Cisco issue? Well, that's the benefit of Flexpod. You get a single throat to choke if there's an issue. So you get a 1-800 number that you call into, and they will determine whether or not it's a Cisco issue or a NetApp issue. And more importantly, they'll also bring in ecosystem partners if there's an issue on that side of the house. So if we're talking about VMware or Citrix or other items within the environment, we have reach into those resources to help you with any of those issues. So that's what I had for everybody. Would love to take any questions. I hope that was useful. If you haven't heard about Flexpod, this is a great way to take your VDI pilot to production, and we'd love to hear more from you and work with you.
Great. Thank you, Tom. At this time, we'll open it up for questions. And as a reminder, if you have any questions about today's presentation, you can post them to the questions pane in the GoToWebinar control panel. And it looks like we did get a few questions in. Tom, this one's for you. It says, why do customers buy Flexpod? I would guess that's buy Flexpod over other alternatives.
For sure. So, there's a lot of talk out there today between converged infrastructure like Flexpod and hyper-converged. So like, let's say a Nutanix, for instance. Nutanix is a great scenario from a hyper-converged infrastructure piece, as far as if you just have a single instance. So if it's just the database or just one VDI instance, not one, but a small amount of VDI, that would be great. Really where Flexpod comes into play is more of looking at an enterprise and the different apps that run inside that enterprise. So if I have VDI, Flexpod can do that. But if I also want to put a database on there like SQL or MS SQL, I can do that as well. A lot of people are looking at Openstack today. We can add Openstack into the system. So again, it's more of a consolidation. If you are a decent sized enterprise and you're looking for something to consolidate those applications onto and scale out as time goes on, that's really where Flexpod is designed to play. So I hope that answers the question.
It does, thank you. And then the next question is, how does support for Flexpod work between Cisco and NetApp? Sure.
So I kind of covered that in the slide, but they're with all the different moving pieces within Flexpod, that's where that single 800 number comes into play. So if it is you think it's a Cisco issue and you call Cisco, for instance, if you don't even call the 800 number, and you call into Cisco through the regular support line and you say, I'm working on a Flexpod, I have this issue, that immediately tags that support ticket as a Flexpod, and the two companies all of a sudden come together and start to work on that ticket. So if we do determine it's a Cisco issue, Cisco takes the ball and starts to work on that issue, and let's say we figure out it's a switch issue or a UCS issue. If Cisco decides, hey, this is more of a storage issue from the NetApp side, NetApp takes the ball and starts to work on that and get it figured out. So it's totally seamless to the customer, single line to call into should you use that 800 number, but also if you go down a different avenue, whether it be Cisco or NetApp, the two companies are combined to resolve that issue as quickly as possible and get you going.
Great. So it truly is the one neck model. I think that was the last of our questions for today. So that will conclude our webinar. Thank you to everyone for your time and attention today, and a special thank you to our guest speaker, Tom Troy, for some wonderful insight.